The marketplace buzzed with activity as merchants hawked their wares and customers haggled over prices. Alien species from across the galaxy mingled together in the Grand Bazaar of Station Kepler 7, one of the largest trading hubs in the Outer Rim. Towering Xanthari with their crystalline skin caught the artificial sunlight, while small, furry Quilax scurried between the legs of larger beings, their pouches jingling with currency chips. In the shadows between two food stalls, something stirred. A small figure huddled against the cold metal wall, trying to make herself invisible. Her scales, once probably a brilliant emerald green, had dulled to a sickly gray-brown from malnutrition and neglect. What remained of her clothes hung in tatters, and her wings were folded so tightly against her back they looked more like a ragged cloak than the proud appendages of her draconic heritage. Zara pressed her face against her knees, trying to ignore the gnawing hunger that had been her constant companion for weeks. The smells from the nearby food vendors made her stomach clench painfully, but she had learned not to hope. Hope only led to disappointment, and she had experienced enough of that to last several lifetimes. A group of young Xanthari approached, their crystalline bodies catching the light as they laughed among themselves. One spotted her and nudged his friends, pointing with a sharp finger that glittered like broken glass. "Look what we have here," the leader said, his voice carrying the musical tones typical of his species, though there was nothing pleasant about his words. A little dragon whelp, all alone and pathetic. His friends gathered around, forming a half-circle that blocked her escape route. Zara looked up with tired eyes, knowing what was coming but too weak to run. Her stomach growled audibly, and the Xanthari laughed. "Did you hear that?" "The little beast is hungry," another one chimed in. "Maybe we should feed her some scraps from the garbage." No, the leader said with mock concern. "Dragons are supposed to be mighty and proud. This one looks more like a sick pet someone abandoned. Tell us, little whelp, when was the last time you ate?" Zara tried to speak but only managed a hoarse whisper. 3 days ago. The admission brought fresh laughter from her tormentors. 3 whole days? My. You must be absolutely starving. But you see, food costs money, and money is something you earn through work. What exactly do you contribute to society, little dragon? I tried to find work, Zara managed, her voice barely audible. But nobody will hire me. They say I'm too young, or too small, or that they don't trust my kind. Smart of them, one of the other Xanthari said. Dragons are known for their temper. Probably burn down the whole shop if you got angry about something. I would never. Oh, but you would, the leader interrupted. It's in your nature. Violence, destruction, hoarding. That's what dragons do. So really, we're protecting everyone by making sure you stay right here. Weak and harmless. The cruelty in their voices cut deeper than the hunger. Zara had heard these words before, variations of the same theme that followed her wherever she went. The galaxy had decided long ago what dragons were, and no amount of evidence to the contrary seemed to matter. Please, she whispered, hating herself for begging but desperate enough to try anyway. I'm not like that. I just need a chance. Just one meal, and maybe some work, and I promise I'll pay you back somehow. The Xanthari exchanged glances and burst into laughter again. Pay us back? With what? You don't have anything of value. You are nothing of value. Their words echoed off the metal walls, and Zara felt something inside her chest crack a little more. She had been strong for so long, had endured months of rejection and cruelty, but everyone had a breaking point. Tears began to roll down her scaled cheeks, and she no longer cared if they saw her cry. "Ah, look now," the leader said with fake sympathy. "We made the little dragon cry. How terrible of us." "Maybe crying is her special dragon power," another suggested. Instead of breathing fire, she breathes tears. Their laughter grew louder, drawing attention from other passers-by. But instead of intervention, Zara saw only more pointing and whispered comments. A few aliens stopped to watch the spectacle, some looking amused, others simply curious about what was happening. "You know what I think?" the Xanthari leader said, crouching down to Zara's level. "I think you should just give up. Find yourself a nice, quiet corner somewhere far from civilized beings, and just fade away. It would be better for everyone. The words hit like physical blows. Zara wrapped her arms around herself tighter, wishing she could disappear entirely. Maybe they were right. Maybe the galaxy would be better off without her. She had certainly never done anything to improve anyone's life, and she seemed incapable of improving her own. I just want to go home, she whispered, though she had no home to return to. Her family had sent her away years ago, saying she needed to learn to make her own way in the galaxy. They had probably forgotten about her entirely by now. This is your home, one of the Zenthari said mockingly. This dirty corner, with the rest of the garbage. Right where you belong. The small crowd that had gathered murmured among themselves, and Zara caught fragments of their conversations. Most seemed to agree with the Zenthari, nodding and making comments about how dragons were naturally violent, and how it was probably safer to keep this one weak and contained. She's probably planning something, she heard someone say. Dragons are sneaky like that, acting all pathetic until they get close enough to strike. I heard they can hypnotize people with their eyes, another voice added. Make you feel sorry for them so you'll let your guard down. None of it was true, but truth seemed to matter little when it came to her species. Dragons had a reputation, and individual dragons were judged by that reputation regardless of their actual actions or character. The Zenthari leader stood up, apparently bored with the sport. Come on, he told his friends. Let's go find something more entertaining. Watching this pathetic creature cry isn't fun anymore. But as they turned to leave, one of them, accidentally, kicked over a small puddle of water that had been within Zara's reach. The precious liquid splashed across the dirty floor and drained away through a grate, taking with it her only source of hydration for the day. Oops, the culprit said with a smirk. So clumsy of me. They walked away laughing, leaving Zara alone again with her hunger, thirst, and despair. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse as well. The entertainment over. Soon she was forgotten once more, just another piece of the station's background that people learned to ignore. Zara stared at the spot where the water had been, feeling the last of her strength drain away. She was so tired of fighting, tired of hoping, tired of trying to prove that she was different from what everyone expected. Maybe it would be easier to just stop trying entirely. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the wall, letting the exhaustion wash over her. Around her, the sounds of the marketplace continued unchanged, the business of life carrying on as if she didn't exist at all. And perhaps, she thought with bitter clarity, she might as well not exist. The galaxy had made it very clear that there was no place in it for a dragon like her. The afternoon wore on, and fewer people passed by her corner. The lunch rush was ending, and the dinner crowd wouldn't arrive for several hours. Zara drifted in and out of consciousness, her body finally demanding rest despite her uncomfortable position. In her dreams, she saw herself as she used to be, young and bright-eyed, full of hope about the adventures waiting in the wider galaxy. Her family had been so proud when she announced her intention to see the stars, to maybe find work as a translator or guide, using her natural gift for languages to help bridge communication gaps between species. You'll do wonderful things, her mother had said, stroking her shining scales. The galaxy needs more understanding between different peoples. And you have such a gift for bringing out the best in others. How naive they had all been. The galaxy didn't want understanding between species. It wanted clearly defined categories, simple explanations for complex realities, and convenient targets for its fears and prejudices. Dragons were meant to be the monsters in the stories other species told their children. There was no room for a young dragon who just wanted to help and belong. When she woke, the shadows had grown longer, and the foot traffic had picked up again. Her stomach cramped with a pain so intense it made her gasp, and for a moment she wondered if this was how it would end. Would she simply waste away here in this corner until someone finally decided to remove her body? But even as the dark thoughts circled in her mind, some stubborn part of her refused to give up entirely. She had survived this long, had endured months of rejection and abuse. Maybe she could endure a little longer. Maybe tomorrow would be different. It was a slim hope, barely more than a whisper in her heart, but it was something. And sometimes, something was enough to keep going for just one more day. Marcus Chen finished his shift at the cargo bay and headed toward the marketplace, his stomach reminding him that he had skipped lunch again. Working as a freight coordinator on Station Kepler 7 wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough and gave him the freedom to travel throughout the Outer Rim whenever he got restless. As one of the few humans this far from Earth, he had gotten used to being something of an oddity himself. The late afternoon crowd was thick as he made his way through the bazaar, dodging between groups of chattering aliens and street vendors calling out their wares in a dozen different languages. Marcus had picked up enough of the common trade tongues to get by, though he still relied heavily on his universal translator for anything complex. He was debating between the Quillek noodle stand and the Zenthari crystal fruit vendor when a commotion caught his attention. A group of young Zenthari were gathered around something, their crystalline laughter ringing out above the general noise of the marketplace. Marcus normally would have minded his own business, but something about their tone made him pause. "Look at the pathetic thing," one of them was saying. "Still crying like a hatchling. Someone should really do something about these creatures. They're becoming a public nuisance." Marcus pushed through the small crowd that had gathered to watch whatever spectacle was unfolding. What he saw made his blood run cold. Huddled against the wall was a young dragon, barely more than a child by human standards. Though he couldn't be sure of the exact age conversion, her scales were dull and patchy, her clothes were in tatters, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in weeks. But it wasn't her physical condition that hit him the hardest. It was the look in her eyes, that particular kind of defeat that came from having hope crushed too many times. Marcus had seen that look before, in the mirror, during some of the darkest periods of his own life. "Please," the young dragon was whispering to her tormentors. Though her voice was so weak, Marcus had to strain to hear it. "I just need work. I can do anything. I'll work harder than anyone else, I promise." The Zenthari leader laughed and kicked dirt in her direction. "Work? Who would hire something like you? You're a liability waiting to happen. One bad day and you'll probably incinerate half the station." "I would never hurt anyone," she protested, but her words were met with more laughter. "That's what they all say, right up until they snap. Dragons can't help themselves. It's in their nature to be violent and destructive." Marcus felt his jaw clench. He had heard similar things said about humans often enough. Aggressive species, they called them. Prone to violence. Unpredictable. And dangerous. It didn't matter that most humans were perfectly peaceful. The reputation of the species painted every individual with the same broad brush. "Come on," another Zenthari was saying. "Let's go. Looking at this thing is making me lose my appetite." But as they started to walk away, the leader turned back with a cruel smile. "You know what? I just remembered something. My family owns a waste processing plant on the lower levels. We always need someone to crawl through the sewage pipes and clean out the blockages. The pay is almost nothing and the smell will never come out of your scales, but it's work." "Interested?" The young dragon's head snapped up, hope flickering in her eyes despite everything. "Yes," she said quickly. "Yes, I'll take it. Thank you. Just kidding." The Zenthari cut her off with a laugh. "Did you really think I would hire a dragon? Even for sewer work? You're not even worth that much." The hope died in her eyes as quickly as it had appeared, and something inside Marcus snapped. He had spent years keeping his head down, avoiding confrontation, trying to blend in and not cause trouble, but watching this cruel display awakened something protective and fierce in his chest. "Hey," he called out, stepping forward. "That's enough." The Zenthari turned toward him with surprise. And Marcus got his first good look at the dragon girl. She was young, probably barely into adulthood, with delicate features and intelligent eyes that held far too much pain for someone her age. Despite her obvious malnutrition, there was something inherently dignified about her that the circumstances couldn't quite erase. "Oh look," the Zenthari leader said with amusement. "A human wants to play hero." "How quaint." "I said that's enough," Marcus repeated, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. "Move along and find something better to do with your time." "Or what?" the crystalline being stepped closer, using his superior height to try to intimidate. You'll attack us? Prove how violent humans really are? Marcus kept his voice calm and level. I'm not going to attack anyone. I'm just asking you to leave this girl alone. She's not bothering you, and she doesn't deserve to be treated like this. This girl is a dragon, another Zenthari said with disgust. They're dangerous creatures that— She's a person, Marcus interrupted firmly. And right now, she's a person who needs help, not harassment. The leader studied Marcus for a long moment, probably trying to decide if a human was worth the trouble of a confrontation. The small crowd that had gathered to watch the dragon's humiliation was now watching this new development with interest. Fine, the Zenthari said finally. But don't come crying to us when she burns down half the station. Dragons are all the same in the end. Violent, unpredictable, and ungrateful. They walked away in a cluster, their crystalline bodies catching the light as they disappeared into the crowd. The onlookers began to disperse as well, apparently disappointed that the entertainment was over. Marcus knelt down beside the young dragon, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. Up close, he could see that she was even worse off than he had initially thought. Her breathing was shallow. Her skin had an unhealthy pallor beneath the scales, and she was shaking slightly from exhaustion or shock. Hey there, he said softly. Are you okay? She looked up at him with confusion and wariness, as if she couldn't quite believe that someone had just defended her. Why did you do that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because it was the right thing to do, Marcus said simply. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, especially when they're already down. Tears began to roll down her cheeks again, but these seemed different from the ones she had shed during the harassment. These looked more like relief than despair. I'm Marcus, he said, settling into a more comfortable position beside her. What's your name? Zara, she managed through her tears. My name is Zara. Nice to meet you, Zara. When was the last time you had something to eat? She looked away in embarrassment. 3 days ago. Maybe 4. I'm not sure anymore. Marcus felt his heart clench. No wonder she looked so weak. And water? This morning there was some rain collected in a container, but— She gestured helplessly at the damp spot where her water had been kicked over. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled out his own water bottle and offered it to her. Here, drink this. Zara stared at the bottle like she couldn't quite believe it was real. I can't pay you for it. I'm not asking you to pay me. I'm offering it to you because you need it. She took the bottle with trembling hands and drank deeply. And Marcus could see some color returning to her scales almost immediately. When she was finished, she tried to hand it back, but he waved her off. Keep it, he said. You need it more than I do. I don't understand, she said, clutching the bottle protectively. Why are you being kind to me? Everyone says humans are almost as dangerous as dragons. Marcus laughed softly. Yeah, I've heard that too. Funny how every species seems to be dangerous according to someone else, isn't it? Maybe the real problem is that people are too quick to judge based on what someone looks like instead of who they actually are. Zara studied his face as if trying to determine whether this was some kind of elaborate trick. You're really not afraid of me? Should I be? Have you done something terrible that I should know about? No, I've never hurt anyone. I don't even know how to breathe fire properly. My family was always disappointed about that. Then no, I'm not afraid of you. You seem like someone who's had some bad luck and could use a friend. The simple statement seemed to break something inside her. And she started crying again. But this time, Marcus could tell they were tears of relief and gratitude rather than despair. I can't remember the last time someone called me a friend, she admitted. Marcus felt his chest tighten with sympathy. He had been lonely plenty of times in his life, but he had never experienced the kind of systematic rejection and dehumanization that this young dragon had clearly endured. Well, now you can remember, he said gently. But first, let's get some food in you. You look like you're about to collapse. I told you, I can't pay. Zara. Marcus interrupted. I'm not asking you to pay. I'm inviting you to eat with me. Friends do that for each other. She looked at him with wonder, as if the concept of someone voluntarily sharing food with her was completely foreign. "You really mean it?" "I really mean it. Come on." He stood up and extended a hand to help her to her feet. She took it hesitantly, and he could feel how thin she had become through her scaled skin. She was unsteady for a moment, swaying slightly from weakness and the sudden change in position. "Easy there," Marcus said, offering his arm for support. "We'll take it slow." As they made their way toward the food vendors, Marcus could feel the stares and whispered comments from other passers-by. Some looked curious about the unusual pairing of human and dragon. Others looked disapproving or concerned, as if Marcus were making a dangerous mistake. "They're all watching us," Zara said quietly, shrinking closer to his side. "Let them watch," Marcus replied. "They've probably never seen a dragon and human having a peaceful conversation before. Maybe it'll be educational for them." Despite everything, Zara almost smiled at that. "You're very optimistic for someone everyone says is from a violent species. And you're very articulate for someone everyone says is a mindless monster. Funny how reality doesn't match the stereotypes." They approached the Quillac noodle stand, where the small furry vendor looked up at them with wide eyes. His gaze flickered nervously between Marcus and Zara, and Marcus could practically see him debating whether to serve them or close-up shop. "2 bowls of your best noodles, please," Marcus said in passable Quillac, placing enough credits on the counter to cover the meal and a generous tip. The vendor hesitated for a moment longer, then began ladling steaming noodles into bowls. You sure about this, friend?" he asked Marcus quietly. "Absolutely sure," Marcus replied. "Just 2 people having a meal together. Nothing dangerous about that." When the bowls were ready, Marcus led Zara to a small table in the vendor's seating area. She sat down carefully, as if afraid the chair might disappear beneath her, and stared at the bowl of noodles as if it were a precious treasure. "Go ahead," Marcus encouraged. "Eat." Zara picked up the chopsticks with practiced ease, and Marcus noticed that despite her hunger, she ate with careful, deliberate movements. She had clearly been raised with good manners, another piece of evidence that contradicted the savage stereotype her species carried. "This is delicious," she said after several bites, and Marcus could see her relaxing as the warm food began to restore some of her strength. "The Quillac make excellent noodles. It's become one of my regular spots." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Marcus used the time to observe his new companion. Despite everything she had been through, there was an intelligence in her eyes and a grace in her movements that spoke of good breeding and education. Whatever had led to her current circumstances, it clearly wasn't a lack of capability or character. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said finally. Zara looked up from her bowl, nodding. "How did you end up here? On the station? I mean, in this situation?" She was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus worried he might have asked too personal a question too soon. But then she began to speak, her voice soft but steady. "My family sent me out to make my own way in the galaxy. It's a tradition among our kind. When you come of age, you leave home to prove yourself worthy of rejoining the clan as an adult. I was supposed to find work, establish myself, maybe even help bridge understanding between dragons and other species." She paused to take another bite, as if gathering strength to continue. "But everywhere I went, people saw only what they expected to see. A dangerous dragon who couldn't be trusted. I tried everything. I spoke multiple languages. I had good references from my tutors. I was willing to work for almost nothing. But no one would even give me a chance." "How long have you been trying?" 8 months. I ran out of money after the first 3. And it's been difficult since then. 8 months of systematic rejection and increasing desperation. Marcus felt a surge of anger at the casual cruelty of a galaxy that could let someone waste away simply because of the circumstances of their birth. "That's going to change," he said firmly. "Starting now." Zara looked up from her noodles with disbelief. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're not going to spend another night on the street," Marcus said, his decision crystallizing as he spoke. "And you're not going to go hungry again while I'm around to prevent it." But why? You don't even know me. For all you know, everything they say about dragons could be true." Marcus set down his chopsticks and looked her directly in the eyes, Zara, I've been watching you for the past hour. You're polite, intelligent, well-spoken, and you eat with better manners than half the humans I know. You haven't shown even a hint of aggression or violence, even when those Zenthari were being deliberately cruel to you. Either you're the best actress in the galaxy, or everything they say about dragons is complete nonsense. Most of it is, she admitted quietly. We're not all the same, any more than all humans are the same, or all Zenthari. But people don't want to hear that. They want simple stories with clear villains. Well, I'm not most people, Marcus said. And I believe in judging individuals by their actions, not their species' reputation. Zara was quiet for a long moment, processing his words. Even if you're right about me, I still don't have anywhere to go, or any way to support myself. I've tried everything I can think of, and nothing has worked. That's because you've been trying to do it alone, in a system that's stacked against you. But you're not alone anymore. Marcus pulled out his personal communicator and began scrolling through his contacts. I know people on this station, and some of them owe me favors. More importantly, some of them are decent enough to look past species prejudice when someone they trust vouches for you. You would do that? Vouch for someone you just met? Zara, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. My instincts tell me you're worth the risk, and I've learned to trust my instincts. He found the contact he was looking for and placed a call. After a few moments, a gruff voice answered in heavily accented standard. Marcus, what can I do for you, friend? Hey, Corvin, I need a favor. Do you have a few minutes to meet? There's someone I'd like you to meet. Time. Of course, of course. You helped my daughter get that scholarship to the engineering academy. I owe you many favors. Where should we meet? The marketplace, near the Quillock noodle stand. We'll be here for a while. I'll be right there. Marcus ended the call and turned back to Zara. Corvin Thakis owns one of the larger freight companies on the station. He's an old-school Thrakari who judges people by their work ethic, not their appearance. If anyone will give you a fair shot, it's him. A freight company? Zara's eyes lit up with interest. I actually know quite a bit about logistics. My tutors made sure I studied practical skills, as well as languages and diplomacy. See, you're already more qualified than you think. While they waited for Corvin to arrive, Marcus asked Zara more about her background and education. He was impressed by the breadth of her knowledge and skills. She spoke 7 languages fluently, had studied interspecies communication, knew basic engineering and computer systems, and had what sounded like an excellent grasp of trade law and logistics. Your family clearly invested heavily in your education, Marcus observed. Why would they send someone with your qualifications out with no support system? Zara looked uncomfortable. The trial of independence is supposed to be a test of character, not just ability. If my family helped me, it would defeat the purpose. I'm supposed to prove that I can make my way on my own merits. And what happens if you fail? Then I'm not welcome to return home. I would be considered an exile, cut off from my clan permanently. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. So you're not just trying to find work. You're fighting for your entire future and identity. Yes, she said simply. Though at this point, I'm not sure I have much future left to fight for. Before Marcus could respond, a large blue-skinned figure approached their table. Corvin Thakis stood nearly 7 feet tall, with the distinctive bony ridges along his skull that marked him as Thrakari. His clothing was practical but well-made, and his expression was curious as he looked between Marcus and his unexpected companion. Marcus, my friend, Corvin said warmly, clasping Marcus's hand in both of his own. You look well, and who is this lovely young lady? Corvin, I'd like you to meet Zara. Zara, this is Corvin Thakis, one of the most successful freight operators in the Outer Rim. Zara stood up quickly, offering a respectful bow that showed she understood Thrakari etiquette. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Thakis. Marcus speaks very highly of you. Corvin's eyebrows rose in surprise. Excellent manners. And she knows proper Thrakari greeting customs. Impressive. He turned to Marcus. I take it this meeting is not purely social? Zara is looking for work, Marcus said. She's highly educated, speaks 7 languages, and has training in logistics and trade law. I thought you might have a position that could use someone with her skills. For the first time since they had met, Corvin seemed to notice Zara's species. His expression became more guarded, though he remained polite. I see. And you're vouching for her character? Absolutely, Marcus said without hesitation. I've been observing her for a while now, and she's demonstrated nothing but intelligence, courtesy, and grace under extremely difficult circumstances. Corvin studied Zara carefully. Tell me, young lady, what do you know about freight scheduling and route optimization? Zara straightened up, and Marcus could see her drawing on every ounce of her education and training. Route optimization depends on multiple variables, including fuel costs, time sensitivity of cargo, political stability of systems along the route, and seasonal variations in demand. The key is balancing efficiency with reliability and maintaining flexibility to adjust for unexpected variables. And how would you handle a situation where a client wants to ship high-value cargo through a system that's experiencing political unrest? I would first assess whether the political situation creates actual risk to the cargo versus mere bureaucratic delays. If there's genuine danger, I would recommend alternative routes, even if they cost more in the short term. A lost shipment is always more expensive than higher shipping costs. If it's just bureaucratic delays, I would build buffer time into the delivery schedule and work with local contacts to smooth the administrative process. Corvin's expression was changing as Zara spoke, becoming more interested and impressed. Very good. And what languages do you speak? Sen. Zara rattled off the 7 languages she was fluent in, including several that were particularly useful in Outer Rim trade. Corvin nodded approvingly. I have to ask, he said finally, why is someone with your qualifications looking for entry-level work? Surely you could find a position with one of the major shipping consortiums. Zara's expression fell slightly. They won't hire dragons, sir. Most companies consider us too much of a liability risk. Ah, Corvin glanced at Marcus, who nodded grimly. And how do you feel about that assessment? I think it's unfair and illogical, Zara said honestly. But I also understand that businesses have to manage their risk profiles. I'm hoping to find someone willing to judge me on my actual performance rather than my species' reputation. Marcus, Corvin said, could you give us a moment alone? I'd like to speak with Zara privately. Marcus hesitated, not wanting to leave Zara to face potential rejection alone, but she nodded to indicate she was okay with it. So he got up and walked a short distance away. Still close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to give them privacy. Corvin sat down across from Zara and leaned forward. I'm going to be very direct with you, young lady. I have heard stories about dragons, and most of them are not flattering. But I have also learned that stories are often wrong, and Marcus has never steered me wrong about a person's character. I understand your concerns, sir. Do you? Because I'm not just risking my reputation if I hire you. I'm risking the safety of my employees and my client's cargo. If you have even one incident, one moment where you lose control, it could destroy everything I've built. Zara met his gaze steadily. Mr. Thakis, I've been homeless and starving for months. People have been cruel to me in ways I didn't know were possible. If I was going to lose control and become violent, don't you think it would have happened by now? Corvin considered this for a long moment. That's actually a very good point. Most people would have snapped under far less pressure. I'm not most people. I was raised to believe that how we respond to adversity defines who we truly are. I refuse to let circumstances turn me into the monster people expect me to be. And if you're accepted for this position, how do I know you'll stay? Dragons are known for wandering. Sir, if you give me this chance, I will be the most loyal employee you've ever had. I understand what it means to be given an opportunity when no one else will, and I won't waste it. Corvin was quiet for several minutes, clearly wrestling with the decision. Finally, he called Marcus back over. Marcus, your friend here makes a compelling case. But I need to know, are you prepared to personally guarantee her conduct? If she causes problems, you share responsibility. Marcus looked at Zara, seeing the hope and fear warring in her eyes. He thought about the 8 months of rejection she had endured, the systematic cruelty of a galaxy that judged her before she even had a chance to prove herself. Yes, he said firmly. I guarantee it. Corvin nodded slowly. Very well, Zara. I'm prepared to offer you a probationary position as a junior logistics coordinator. The pay is modest, but it includes housing in the company quarters and meal allowances. The probationary period is 3 months, during which your performance will be closely monitored. If you successfully complete the probationary period, we'll discuss a permanent position with better compensation. Zara's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. You mean it? You're really offering me a job? I am. But I want to be clear about the conditions. Any sign of the aggressive behavior your species is known for, and the arrangement ends immediately. You'll be working with other species who may be uncomfortable around you initially. You'll need to be patient with them and prove yourself through consistent professional behavior. I understand completely. Thank you, Mr. Thakis. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 3 months if you're still here and doing good work. But his stern words couldn't hide the small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Marcus had seen that expression before. Corvin was already starting to like Zara, despite his reservations. When can she start? Marcus asked. Tomorrow morning. Report to my office at 0800 station time. I'll have your employee identification and quarters assignment ready. Corvin stood up and shook both their hands. Marcus, I hope your instincts are as good as they usually are. Zara, I hope you're as capable as you claim to be. After Corvin left, Zara sat in stunned silence for several minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. I can't believe it's real. After all this time, someone finally said yes. It's real, Marcus assured her. And you're going to do great. Corvin may seem gruff, but he's fair, and he rewards hard work. If you do your job well, you'll have security and a future. How can I ever repay you for this? You saved my life today. Marcus smiled. You don't need to repay me. Just succeed. Prove to everyone who doubted you that they were wrong. Show the galaxy that dragons can be more than the stereotypes people have created. Zara wiped her tears and sat up straighter, and Marcus could see a new determination in her eyes. I will. I promise you. I won't let this opportunity go to waste. I know you won't. As they prepared to leave the noodle stand, Marcus realized that something had shifted in the atmosphere around them. Other patrons and passers-by who had been watching with suspicion or curiosity now seemed to be looking at them with something approaching respect. Word was already spreading that the young dragon had landed a job with Corvin Thakis, one of the most respected business owners on the station. They're looking at us differently now, Zara observed. Success has a way of changing people's perceptions, Marcus replied. But remember this feeling, because you're going to face more challenges ahead. There will always be people who judge you by your species, rather than your actions. The key is not letting their prejudice become your limitation. As they walked through the marketplace together, Marcus felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Today, he had done more than help one individual. He had struck a small blow against the arbitrary prejudices that made life harder for everyone who was different. And tomorrow, Zara would begin proving that dragons could be trusted colleagues, valued employees, and loyal friends. The galaxy was about to learn that its assumptions about entire species were not just wrong, but dangerously limiting. And it was all starting with one human who decided to kneel beside someone everyone else had written off, and simply say, "Come eat with me." In the months that followed, Zara would become one of Corvin's most valued employees, eventually earning promotion to senior logistics coordinator, and helping to revolutionize the company's operations with her innovative approaches to interspecies trade relations. Her success would inspire other business owners to reconsider their hiring practices, and gradually, other dragons would find opportunities that had been closed to them for generations. But that future was built on this single moment of connection between two people who refused to let prejudice define the boundaries of friendship and opportunity. Sometimes, Changing the galaxy started with something as simple as sharing a meal with someone who needed to know they weren't alone.